experience where two have truly become one. God is at the center of us, our purpose and vision in His love. We dedicate our today, tomorrow, and always to You, our King. Bless and let there be love in our home. The marriage experience ordained by You alone. The marriage experience. The marriage experience ordained by You alone.
Welcome to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakunle and Boside Santos, where they explore what it means to cultivate a God-centric marriage by delivering realistic and biblical wisdom, pointers, and insights from couples and individuals on the marriage journey. Join them today as they share some insights. Enjoy.
Hello again, friends, and welcome to yet another episode of the Marriage Experience program. It's another special episode where our conversations give you the needed tools to build a thriving Christian marriage. It's always our delight to be with you on this journey to build successful and godly marriages. Now, when we started this program, remember, we promised to bring on couples who'd share their own personal journeys with you every so often. And today, as we dive into a conversation many couples can relate to, and that's transitions, we have a very special couple who are really dear to us, and they're here to help us deliberate on this topic of transitions. Now, transitions come to all of us. It could be unexpected career moves, it could be growing families, shifting seasons of life, any of such events.
Absolutely, but what happens when the shifts come hard and fast, and when you're raising children, navigating career change, and still trying to stay connected as husband and wife? Welcome to today's special treat, and our guests today are Titi and Bumi Ogunyanwos, an incredible couple. They know a thing or two about the dance of transition. Titi's that beautiful voice over that who welcomes you to our weekly program, our weekly get together on Marriage Experience. And she also reminds you to come back again next time. So it's good for you to meet that lovely person. So both of them have walked through parenting transitions, and they've made bold career pivots, and also discovered that what it really means to evolve together. And this is the key part, without losing each other. So grab your tea, find a quiet spot,
or coffee,
and let's get into this conversation.
Right. So Tuti and Bumi would share how they've handled moments of tension, seasons of doubt, and unexpected blessings. Now, we'll talk about learning to support each other when the journey looks different on both sides, because sometimes one of you might find your feet very quickly, and the other might have a bit of a struggle finding their faith, etc. So welcome, Titi and Bumi. So glad to have you here with us today. Could you please tell us something about who you are, who Titi and Bumi are, and a bit about your journey so far?
Thank you so much for having us. We're really glad to be here as well. So just a little bit about us. As you've mentioned, I'm Titi, and professionally, I work in compliance and quality assurance, and here with me is my husband.
Bumi, I'm a medical doctor by training.
And our journey so far, well, we've been married just over 10 years, and we have two beautiful children, two beautiful daughters. And in terms of our journey, we believe that we are a married couple brought together by God Himself. We believe we're made for each other. And I'm not even just, literally.
Not cliche.
Because we quite align. We're very similar in our thinking, and we share the same purpose, and we feel that God has brought us together for a reason. So we see our marriage as very, very important to God. So we carry that through our marriage, and that's the journey so far.
That's wonderful. I love that bit that you said you feel that your marriage is very important to God, and that's a message that we would also like to share with our listeners, that every marriage was handpicked by God and
That's true.
important to God. So thank you for that. Yeah. So let's start with your career. Both of you, we would imagine that you've made transitions professionally. And could you please walk us through one or two pivotal changes that you've made?
So, we've had some transitions, no doubt about it, and two that stand out really obviously, for me, for us, but mainly for me, impacting on our marriage, was one, me moving from Nigeria to the UK because I did my medical training in Nigeria and then came over here to start practicing as a doctor. And at the time, that transition was relatively straightforward, I would say, because we were dating, we're not married, so there wasn't that huge sense of responsibility in terms of family. And it was really just a case of Titi was settled in the UK, I was in Nigeria. We couldn't work the relationship being apart, and at the time, it seemed like the most reasonable course of action was for me to come over to the UK. So that was relatively straightforward. And this was before we got married, like I said. But more recently, we are in the process of moving to Canada from the UK. And
Canada.
Yes, and this is it's a much bigger transition, as you can imagine. It's because now we're married. We've been married for over 10 years. We've got 2 kids, and again, we're moving in large parts for work for myself, and that has, I think, we've had our ups and downs in some ways, even though it's been largely positive, and trying to balance work, personal ambition, family, how everything fits together. It's a completely different transition, and thankfully, it's gone really well so far, and I think that is largely because we have been on the same mind about the move, and but we've handled it, I think, by being as much as possible trying to be on the same page. So if I have any doubts or if I have any queries as such, I bring it up, we discuss it, and we've prayed about it, obviously. But it's had a huge impact on how our relationship has unfolded in the last few months since we've been talking about it. But I don't know, how has it been for you?
For me, it's been good as well. In terms of the transition, obviously the main one for us as a family will be this one we're doing right now to Canada, and of course it's primarily for Bumi's work. But then for me, it's also a transition career-wise as well, because I'm leaving my existing work and I'm going out there to start afresh. I'm very excited by it. I'm going to be honest. I'm looking forward to it. The unknown, not knowing what's going to happen. I'm not looking to go and obviously get into the rhythm of this 9 to 5 cycle. So I'm looking forward to going out there and starting afresh, wanting to do the things I've always wanted to do. I see it as a new beginning. And it's always, I mean, how often do you get a chance to just start all over again,
Yeah.
So, and try to do something else now, decide, okay, where am I going? What do I want to do? Okay, let's go to God. So it's quite an exciting period for me as well.
Yeah, it's just been so interesting listening to you, because we have been through transition ourselves, from Nigeria to the UK to Scotland to Canada, within Canada and back to the UK, and each transition, as Bumi pointed out, is very different. And there's something that I like, that he talked about, and that was, you talked about it, you prayed about it before and during the whole process, but the question now is, how did you manage? Of course, whenever there's transition, there's always the apprehension of, are we taking the right decision? What's life going to be like where we're going to? School, housing, job, all that kind of stuff. How did you manage those tensions or even surprises when you move to the UK? So thinking about moving to the UK, number one, and then also planning to move to Canada.
I think in terms of moving to the UK, because we were only dating at the time, and for me, it was I was moving from Nigeria to the UK for better opportunities, and Titi was already settled in the UK. It was relatively straightforward. I wouldn't say we had any tensions, or in fact, if I hadn't done it, that would have been the problem. If you see what I mean?
Where we are now.
Exactly, because it was like, what are you waiting for? Like, just come over. Let's start together here and things like that. So that was relatively straightforward. We didn't have any mishaps along the way. The more recent one, I think one big fear and worry I had was, how is Titi going to take all of this? Because the move is happening largely because of my work and my personal situation, and I just didn't know how it was going to fit in with, what she was doing, whether she was even going to like it. She's been in the UK all her life mostly, and having to leave all of that. I had made a move before from Nigeria to the UK, so wanting to move from the UK to Canada wasn't for me so much of a big deal. And I had that sort of apprehension as to whether or not she was really going to be on board with the plan.
To buy in.
I was, sorry?
I said that she was going to buy in.
Exactly. But surprisingly, it was the other way around. I had so much apprehension, and she was so, come on, let's
go for it.
Yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And then I was beginning to like, is this real, or is this just...
She's going to change halfway.
Yeah, she's an adventurer.
Exactly. I think because right from the beginning, when we got married, we had discussed this before. We knew we didn't want to just stay in one place. He said, okay, what we'll do is after, this period of time, certain period of time, he was going to do his training here, specialty training. We said after that, we're going to move. And obviously at that time, we had our mindset on a different location. But then during the period, we thought, okay, no, maybe not that location anymore, but we do know where. So when Canada came up, and it came up, let's just say God designed it, to be that Canada, we had no reason I had no reason anyway to be apprehensive. It was a no-brainer. So from the beginning, we had spoken and decided and agreed, and we believe our desires are given to us by God. So if we discussed at the time, so we're going to move, and an opportunity has now come up. At that time, at the specific time we had said we would move, for me, it could only be God. And if that's the case, I have no reason to worry. I have no reason to fear. And we're going, it's always an adventure. Life is an adventure. If you don't do this now, when are you going to get the chance to? So let's just go.
Yeah. I mean, that's so wonderful to hear, because you said right at the very beginning that you both knew that God put you together for a reason, because you aligned in a lot of things. So it's not coming as a surprise, Titi, that you came on board so quickly regarding to this new move. So, but what would be the lessons that you'd want to share with couples who may currently be navigating something similar?
I think the lesson I would share is, obviously, number one, if you guys already know what it is God is saying concerning your marriage and your home, number one. Number two, you both know what your joint or your values are, your vision, right, is as well, and they're aligned with what God is saying. Whatever you're navigating through, it's just one question. Does it fall in line, or is it out of place? And if it falls in line with all of the above, that is number one, what God is saying. Number two, saying concerning your home, your purpose. Number two, what your vision is as a family, your God-given vision. Number three, your values. Then I think, that thing is either going to fall in or fall out. And if it doesn't fall within, then you have to ask yourself why. Why is it not aligning with these things? And it shouldn't be something that should then stress you too much. Because again, your trust is not in your abilities or in your it's not in knowing what the outcome will be. Your trust is always going to be in God. Do you understand? And we have scriptures for reasons. Abraham was taken up and sent to go to a land that he didn't even know. It was an adventure. And how you see it, it's how you see it and who you're trusting. You're not trusting, you have to trust God, not the plan. You trust God, not your plan. Because your plan can fall to bits. Things can change halfway. And like Bumi said, I had to ask myself, because Titi, are you sure this your excitement is not just initial gree? You're not going to change halfway through and then suddenly start getting panicked.
Reality,
and I was like, actually, Do you know what I mean? I had to then check myself and say, okay, is this just the initial excitement? And I was like, no, actually, because it's an adventure with God. It's an adventure with God where I don't know what it's going to be like out there, but I know I'm not going out there alone. I know God has gone ahead of me, and I know He's going with me. And so I have no reason to fear. Everything is going to work together for my good. So no matter what anybody's going through, and that's the encouragement I think we would give, is just trusting in God, knowing your plans, because your plans can change. Things can come in that you didn't expect, but trusting God, and then make sure whatever it is you're doing, if it's a bit, does it fall in line? If it doesn't, then you have to ask why. And is it worth prioritizing?
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakunle and Bosade Santos.
And I like that response, because it then leads us to the next question. I remember a conversation I was having with someone, this is years and years ago when our kids were young, and I think they must have been probably about 10 years old then or something. And I met a mother who was trying to deal with a toddler, and she was saying, just can't wait for him to be able to look after himself, to a certain level, get his own food and all that kind of stuff. And I just smiled and I said, someone once told me that no matter how old your children are, there would always be something that you need to do for them or with them. And that leads us to the question of dynamism and I don't want to use the word evolution because it's usually abused these days, but how children evolve and how your connection with them evolves. So parenting is very dynamic. So the way you treat and run, treat your children and run your family changes all the time. Not only because the children are getting older, but because the environment changes, and particularly when you have something like what you're going to start very shortly, a totally different environment, different ways of doing things, different schooling systems. So what one advice would you have for those who are thinking of doing that, and what would you say was the most challenging of this whole process? Particularly, we're focusing now on your parenting and skills. What would you consider as the most challenging part, and how were you able to address that?
Is it more like what has stretched you as parents? Yes.
Okay. I think what I would say is, number one, children are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. They're a lot more resilient. And I think number two, it's carrying the children along in the journey. Whatever the transition is, whether it's a big one or a small one. And I think, so for us with this current transition, obviously our little one is still very young. And then we have our eldest, she's 8 years old, she's going to be 9 soon. We had a conversation with her, when we were sure we were definitely moving. And we told her about it. And her initial take was not she was excited and she was like, am I going to leave everybody behind? And we said, yes, you're going to be leaving everybody behind. But we gave her enough time to process, to go through all the different waves, the excitement. And then one morning she was very emotional. She was like, so we're going to leave our house because this is the only home she's known. We're like, yes, we're not taking our house with us.
You could try.
You could attempt to do that.
And then she was even then worried about our neighbors. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Is this girl for real? But, is understanding that she's going through the different emotions, and she's identified, okay, my cousins, everyone. And so we allowed her enough time to process all of that. And then so we had this, let's talk about it continuously. And of course, similar to maybe some other people, we didn't share the news with everyone initially. So we had told her that if you wanted to talk about it, you need to come and have the conversation with us. So there was that sort of brought us together, because it was that unified thing in the family that we were talking together about. And, we could say we prayed about it together. And then gradually carrying her along. When we went to visit, we visited some schools. I took pictures of the school, I did videos, and then I sent them to her because she didn't come with us, so she can go through the process and she can, in a way, feel part of the decision making. And we sort of basically told her that, because she did ask, why do we have to move? But we're fine. And, we had to explain to her that it's a journey. There's nothing that it should be excited. And she's in a good place now where she's quite very positive about the change. She's looking forward to it. And I'm not saying that that's now it, because I won't be surprised when we get out there. There may still be some new emotions, but it's working and carrying them along with it. Communicating. I don't think we should we should how can not devalue the children's emotion and their understanding of things. But yeah, I think that's how I would say the transition, how we've been able to work it with our children.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because one thing you said there that really resonated with me is that sense of unity in what you're doing, that unity of purpose. Because I think for me, going through that phase where I'm saying, okay, well, there's new opportunities primarily for my work and all that, and trying to get Titi on board, you could almost easily forget the children. It's almost like there's an expectation that they would tag along. But having that sense of unity, that this isn't just about us, this is about us as a family, together in God, united in God, following God's plan for us individually and collectively as a family, and trying to work out how we can bring everybody together, not so much to agree to the plan, but to be open about it and to talk about it and to have a sense of unity in mind about what we're doing. And whilst there might be one reason here or one reason there why we feel, okay, this may not work or this would work, that's less important as long as we are united in what we're doing. Our strategy may be slightly different, but we are united in purpose.
That's really important. The unity, because that's the only way to move forward.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so beautiful listening to both of you.
Honestly,
and the way
it is.
the way that you are expressing these things, because a lot of the things that you are saying are corroborating what we had said, what we had shared on this program, which is first and foremost, as a family, you must have your set of values. What will be guiding you? Otherwise, I mean, they will always be your true north. Otherwise, you're just going to be drifting, and you're not going to maintain that unity of purpose that we're talking about. And then the second thing, the way that you carried your daughter and you made her part of the process, made her part of the decision making. Obviously the overall decision lies with both of you, but she still has that sense that she was regarded, and she was regarded, and she was part of it. Her emotions were put into consideration, and it wasn't just dumped on her to enable, to make her just tag along, like Bumi said. Yeah.
There's something that Titi said also about children, that they're a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. You try to protect your children, but look, children are resilient, and children are able to manage changes and manage challenges a lot more, a lot better than we give them credit for.
Yeah, and that's so true, because our children are grown now. One is married, and the parenting feedback, one of the parenting feedbacks that they gave us was that we shielded them too much. So because there were a lot of challenges that we didn't put in their faces. That we didn't put in their faces, and they were like, we would really have wanted to be part of it. And so we've learned that now. And to hear you already with your young family, including that,
they read the script.
Including that in your family, that is so wonderful to hear. So now let's having processed the journey so far that way, how would you say that all of this is impacting your faith, your sense of identity as children of God, and your marriage, which is an institution ordained by God?
Well, I would say, if anything, it's probably strengthened our resolve in God, because
wonderful.
When we think about not just this particular transition, but the things that we've been doing over the years, and we've tried to be aligned. I'm not saying we've always aligned, but we've tried to be as aligned as we can be. And I think with this being such a big move and how it naturally impacts so many areas of your life, you think that surely we've got to be one with this. And if anything, it's, at least from my end, it's made me question more our relationship in a positive way, that if we're doing this and we can be aligned in our sense of purpose and our sense of direction, then clearly it's not going to work. And when it comes to our faith, I was thinking about the scripture recently about when Paul was saying that he prays, I think it was the Philippian church, that you be of one mind. And I was thinking about how powerful it is when you're united in your sense of purpose and your sense of direction, because we say that the strength of the church is in its unity. And this has made me question whether we are indeed united, if you see what I mean. Like I said, in a positive way, because you're asking that, okay, are we united in our sense of purpose? Because we couldn't make such a move and not impact our sense of purpose and our sense of direction and where we believe God is taking us as a family and as individuals. And it's made me think about our relationship more from that point of unity. And I've, over the months, come to that place where I feel more encouraged and more settled and resolved on the fact that we are in this together and this is what God is saying to us. It's made me feel more grounded in our commitment to God and in our relationship. Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. One thing I like that has come up quite a bit over the last few minutes has been this word called unity. Unity is different from unison, right? Right. Unity means we're coming together to achieve that word that you used a lot also was purpose. We've got that goal, but we're different human beings. We think differently. We do things differently. The beauty is not to force or try to get each one of us to become exactly the same, but to bring all those, like a beautiful mosaic. What would a mosaic look like if every shape, every piece of glass was the same shape, same color, same, it just wouldn't work out. So when we're talking of unity in marriage here, which is what you've pointed out, you're both individuals, you think about things differently, but the goal is to have that purpose that you both can satisfy. So talking about that single purpose, how has your faith shaped the way you walk through these transitions then? Since you go through these transitions as one. The first one was, well, kind of half and half. Bumi was moving here and all that. So that wasn't really a transition as a family.
Yeah,
Yes.
Now that was probably like just preparing for the real thing, mock exam. This is the real exam. How has your faith shaped the way you're beginning to, or you plan, not just what you've done so far, but also what you plan to do through this transition?
To be honest, because again for us, everything we believe God has put the desire in our hearts, and if He's put that desire in our hearts, then it's of God. We've checked it in prayer. We felt the peace of God concerning the move. And our faith is what's sort of carrying us. Because again, there's still, like we've said, throughout so far, there's a lot of unknown. Even though we've got plans in place, we've got this, but we know that what happens with plans. Especially when you go to a place you're not sure. You can never bank on your plan.
Yeah.
So I think our faith has helped to shape our thing in the sense that our trust is completely in God. And our trust is also, and our confidence is in knowing that we're in it together, and we're not in it together because we just have a common goal. We're in it together as a family that God has put together Himself. And so our trust is completely in God. So our faith is really what's helped us to run through this so far, very positively with a lot of energy. Of course, you have your questions here and there, and you have to keep coming back to checking with God, especially when you get busy with the practical things. You're busy packing, you're busy trying to do this. But again, every now and then, especially when you start having yourself, are we sure we're doing this? You come back and check in with God, and our faith will help us, give us that strength to carry on, to say, yes, you're doing this, because this is not just of you. It may have come to you as an idea, but or you think it's your idea, but it's God that's taking you somewhere, and it's a journey with God.
All right.
Well, just to add to what you said about the faith, because when we started this journey of the transition and whatnot, what do we do and all that, and we had doubts, we had questions about so many things. It was key scriptures that we had that really helped us to stay on track, because we one of the scriptures we've always held on to is that we believe that all things work together for our good, and that we can never really be disadvantaged in life because we have God. And so there was even that sense of, even if this is wrong and there's a mistake or there's something not quite right, God will make it work together for our good. God will bring us back on track. Whether we make the move or we don't make the move, but God would help us to come back to Him. He will find ways to reach out to us and come back to Him. So that sense of peace and confidence that even when I'm wrong, I will end up being right has kept us all the way.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakunle and Bosade Santos.
Yeah, I mean, and that segues beautifully into my next question, which is, you've talked a lot about your faith and the way that both of you are well aligned in terms of purpose and how you agree with each other regarding the matters that affect your family. So what would be the practices that have helped you to stay both emotionally and spiritually connected? I mean, well, through different transitions that you've experienced. I mean, you've experienced Bumi moving from Nigeria to the UK, getting married, and that's a transition, starting a family, a transition from one child to two.
And the children growing, another transition as well,
so,
constant transition.
So what practices have helped you?
What would you say?
I'll say two practices, right? The first one is we were doing solidly for a very long time. And I'll say in the last year and a half, we've not been as good, but we know how important that practice is and we intend to go back to it because it's so vital to us. And that is, we do monthly prayers together. It's almost like we do like a night vigil together. And we really just pray. We do praise and worship. We do prayer, the Bible reading. And we structure in a way, I love the way it's structured anyway. So we do that where Bumi would have gone in prayer ahead of the meeting, and then he will have what God is saying, and then he will share it in them. So I even used to look forward to hearing, okay, what's God saying concerning this month, or this season. And then he shares it, we pray about it, we do this, we pray for all our friends, family, loved ones, we do that. We've not been as faithful with that, but we know how important that is, so crucial. It's been definitely one practice. The second practice I'll say is our Saturday morning discussion. So every Saturday morning we'll, basically just stay in bed for the first couple of hours or few hours. We intentionally wake up slightly earlier than the kids with our coffee, and then we just chat. We'll pray, and then we just talk. We'll talk about everything, anything. So how's life? What's this? And sometimes we'll occasionally go through certain things together, important points during that discussion. So I'll say two things: the monthly night vigil and our Saturday morning chats.
So have you been listening to the Marriage Experience program? Because it's so beautiful when you hear people validate what you talk about, because these are also practices that we've encouraged our listeners to engage in as couples, but praying and talking and setting specific times when you get to do that, because these were the kind of things that we did, still do now that we're empty nesters. So it's even afforded us that more. So thank you for sharing that.
There's something I really love, and that's about both of them. Is that the honesty and the vulnerability that they put themselves out. They talked, Titi just talked about the fact that they were doing something and they stopped. Look, they're human beings, and we all go through different phases and challenges in life. But the most important thing is to be able to recognize when we've fallen off the horse, to admit falling off the horse and getting back on the horse, because no one's perfect. If you're perfect, then you're Jesus Christ as well. So thank you very much for that, because that would encourage other couples as well who may have deviated from what they set out to, and maybe losing that boldness or that drive to get back on track. Now, what you just talked about are habits, and habits are not always bad. habits could also be good and they help. But could you just come up with names, or if you don't want to, that's fine, of mentors or even scriptures that you've had that have been game changers for you on this your marriage journey, first of all, and in this journey of transition as well?
Scriptures. I think I shared one earlier.
Yes.
I believe it's in Romans about all things work together for good.
Yeah.
So that's one key scripture for us, because in our conversations and we're talking and like, oh, this is not going according to plan, or it's not going well. One person, usually would say, but we know that all things work together for our good. We know that God is always for us. We know that his plans and his purposes in our lives would always be established. So I would say that's definitely one scripture. Thanksgiving. We say in everything give thanks. And I think that's one very important one, because in our relationship and in our marriage, this is one thing I've always been grateful to God for, that as individuals and as a couple, we are usually more often than not grateful and thankful. Even when one person is seemingly going off track, you have the other person to pull back and say, look, let's be thankful. And I think more so Titi is actually a lot more than me, because sometimes I'm like, this is not going according to plan, and she's like, look, let's just be thankful for what we have. Let's be grateful.
You
for
don't
this.
say.
Yeah, because I'm a lot more structured than, once things start moving out of plan, then I'm like, what's going on here?
I think it's a male thing.
And then another scripture, is there any other scripture? Well, again, I believe Philippians, in everything give thanks. We talked about that. All things work together for good. Is there any other scriptures you would say? Yeah, one other scripture actually. I believe it's in the book of Matthew about do not worry, when Jesus was speaking to them. Do not worry about what you eat or drink. And Titi, this seems to be a lot more, Titi's cornerstone. Like, do not worry, do not fret about what you eat or what you drink.
Just stay focused.
Just stay focused.
And everything else will be sorted out.
Everything else will be sorted out. So I think, maybe those three scriptures would be.
I'll say that.
One or two others, but I
Those
think
are
these
three.
are the very core scriptures that we often rely on.
And you asked about mentors. I don't believe we have any mentors. We don't. I think what we try to do is not try to look to certain couples, because you never know the full story with every home. And it's not everything that they share. And so I don't think we've had our eyes set on any particular. What we look at is we benchmark our marriage, or what we use as a sharpening tool, what to continuously remind us. It's just what the scripture says our marriage should be about, and what God has told us our marriage should be about. And we'll come back to say, okay, fine, what we doing right, what we doing wrong. So we've never really, and I don't believe we have any. Do you know?
No, I don't think so. And that's not because we don't believe in mentors.
Yes,
It's just the case that over the years we've never really. There are people that we respect, that we admire, that we look up to in some ways, but I wouldn't necessarily say
we
mentors.
We don't have any or any couple that we have as that relationship with. But there is someone that stands out actually, and we were very, very intentional to have him marry us, to be the person to preside over our wedding, and he was also the person that named our first daughter. We were very intentional in selecting him, and that's because he's a man that we greatly respect. He's a man of God. We greatly respect him, and he's also sort of family as well. And we know him, to a large extent. We have seen him, how he relates with his home, in his home. We've seen his passion, his love for and his service to God. We've seen his service to his family, and he's someone that we respect. I don't even think he even knows that we have this admiration of him, but he's someone that we greatly respect, and so. He's one person I would say that
comes close.
That comes close to anything like that.
I really appreciate this conversation. Actually, it's the whole conversation, the whole program today. But particularly this thing about mentorship. This is just a personal belief that, first of all, the only mentor that we can have, that we can aspire to be like in every way, is Jesus Christ, right? Everyone else, no matter who they are, happen to be human beings
Who-
who themselves have
flawed.
flaws.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when it comes to mentorship, it's just to put that point out that look, yeah, you might look at someone and like a number of qualities that they have or they exhibit. But the most important thing is it's almost like a buffet, right?
Mm.
You go into the buffet and you go, well, I like that, I like that, I don't like that. So I select what works for me, right? I sit down and I have my meal. Now I may come back tomorrow and need something else or prefer something else. So it doesn't matter who a person is. It could be the very worst person. You know, one of the ways in which one of the ways in which you can have somebody who appears not to be a good person at all as a mentor is how to learn how not to do things. So mentors are supposed to lead you the right way, but you can also have these negative behaviors that would remind you what not to do. So exactly. So if we see mentorship as like a buffet, and then very fine, and that's good.
And besides, mentorship doesn't mean that you sit with them one to one. It could just be that they could
From a
mentor
distance,
you
yeah.
through their books,
Yeah.
through their programs, you know, because, and even this person that you spoke about is a mentor of sorts because his life has impacted yours to the extent that you wanted him to be part of your story. So, yeah. So, anyways,
Sorry, just one more point. You know, that just came to mind because that conversation came up quite a while ago, and the point is, mentors don't always have to be people who are quote unquote your seniors, because
absolutely.
you can learn from anybody.
Anybody.
You know, we've been married for more than 1 year. We've been married for more than 10 years. But we can still learn from people who got married yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, so we having this conversation with you, I know I have picked up a number of things that I've learned personally from you, and we're going to use that to sharpen our own iron as well as you get sharpened as well.
Our kids, I mean, there are things that they are so good at, and I would always tend to default to how they do it because I've seen them, you know, succeed at those things. So they in that regard, they are mentors, you know, when it comes to those specific things. So let's look back now on your journey so far, and what would be one thing that you probably wish that you knew back in the day that would have also affected the way that you balance your family and your purpose?
What will you do differently?
What would you do differently?
I think looking back, the one thing I would say I wish I'd known is that God has a vested interest in every area of my life. And because there was a time that I I'll probably say struggle because it was like an internal struggle between work, family, purpose. And I felt like one was getting in the way of the other. And I was beginning to think, okay, I need to learn how to prioritize which one should come first, which one should come second. But where I am now, you know, and in my understanding and my conviction is that actually one is not more important than the other. God has an interest in my family. He has an equal interest in my career. He also has an interest in my purpose because all of that is my ministry. And, you know, all of those things form my ministry. And God has a vested interest in everything. And so for me, it's knowing that they can't conflict because God has given them all to me. He's not the author of confusion. And so family will not hold me back in my purpose to him. Likewise, my purpose to him will not affect my family or my ministry, my work will not affect any of those things. It's me knowing that. I wish I'd known that and not had those internal struggles that was sometimes, you know, will come off in the way I would then respond to things even in the family. Like almost as though, you know, being a mom or because we're expanding our family, we're choosing to expand our family, it means I'm going to have to step back, you know, and then this is going to affect this. No. Everything is important to God, and God has given everything to me, and so they can't fight against each other. It's me understanding that, and now I wish I'd known that and saved myself that internal struggle, because it's about capacity and going back to God and knowing that actually everything is of God. So one is not less important or more important. It's just knowing how to balance things.
And for me, what would you say?
Thinking about it now, I would say that one thing I wish I had known or learned earlier in our marriage is the importance of open communication. Because I think even though we talked earlier about like our Saturday morning chats where we just talk and talk and talk, when I think about it, I think it's been a bit more selective communication. Like choose what you want to talk about. For me, I'm talking about now, not from the two of us. For me, you kind of choose, and there are topics that you feel or areas where she'll figure it out. We don't need to talk about that, kind of a thing. And more in the last 1 or 2 years or so, I would say, I've come to realize more the importance of just being open about everything. Communication is not talking about what you want to talk about. It's just talking about everything. Putting everything out there and discussing, and it may be good, it may be pleasant, it may be unpleasant, or whatever the case is, but just talk about everything. And I would say that's still, Titi's always said this to me, that, and I feel like it's a work in progress for me, where, because my default is to just not talk about it, not because I feel I don't want to, I just feel it's not necessary, but I'm learning more and more the importance of being, like, not being in my own shell and just coming out and being open, and just how important it is to the marriage to be open and honest and about the whole.
Let me just. I'm gonna, because we have to make sure that it's very clear. So what we're talking about here is avoiding to have those sort of conflicts, a conversation that could bring conflict, or you're worried this person may not take well. And so you just hold off saying it. So, the difference is if I don't like something, or if I'm feeling a certain way, feel you're making me feel a certain way, I would say it. So let's just address it. So where Bumi will just say, okay, do you know what? Let me just move over it. I'll work with it. And he doesn't want
Does
to
that sound familiar?
And so there was a lot of that. And then one day you just have a conversation, and then he'll say, or I'm trying to say, and then he will now decide to at one point say, well, it's not like I've been accepting, and what? You've been feeling this and you didn't say? So it's just like, well, there's just no point. I didn't, and I when he then, I realized, okay, maybe it's not so much I don't give him the avenue to say, or there's no avenue to say. I think it's just that default to just, we'll move forward. I'll find the way to work around it. So we had to have a big conversation about that. No, we actually need to make it a lot more open. Any type of conversation, just say it,
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakunle and Bosade Santos.
And off the back of that, it's very encouraging that you engage with this tension, these tensions in marriage, because there is no perfect marriage, as we know, in the sense of marriage is evolving, and today it's perfect, and then tomorrow there's something to grow into, and you keep growing and moving forward. So I really like the fact that both of you have that different thing. And Titi, one thing that you said that struck me, even just yesterday, I was thinking about this, that we are not compartmentalized beings, because every part of us, whether purpose, whether profession, whether ministry, or our calling as wives or mothers, as parents, all of that we're doing. The Bible tells us that everything we do for the glory of God. So one shouldn't take away from another.
And this conversation just reminds me of one of the topics that we used to address when I was training pilots, when we were talking about human factors and human behavior as well. In the old days, pilots would go, well, it doesn't matter what kind of a problem I have at home. The moment I hit the start button of the engine and start the engines, all the problems go away, and all I just focus. Well, that might be the case when you're very busy, when you're starting the aircraft, when you're taxiing, but But once you're airborne and you're in the cruise and there's not much to do, those problems start filtering back again. So in life is not compartmentalized. Oops, that's a very long word. It is every single part of our lives filter into each one, and so that leads us to the next question. What kind of encouragement would you give couples who feel stuck? Particularly those where you have, like, Titi, you pointed out, there's a conflict between marriage, career, family, faith, everything. What kind of encouragement would you give them to learn how to sort this out? That feeling of being overwhelmed about the challenges.
The advice I would give is, number one, like we've said already, is recognizing that everything you have is, or at least your family, your, number one, being a spouse, number two, being a parent, your career, your purpose, if it's, different, if you see them as different, they're all callings that God has put you in, that God has put you in this place. And I think it's, number one, just remembering that. And number two, and probably more importantly, so that none of these things belong to you. Your marriage does not belong to you. Your children don't belong to you. Now, the ministry you have in your workplace, and I'll say workplace because that's the one that usually people find as conflict. It's, when we say that, go out and we are the light of the world, it's not like we're the light inside church. We'll come to church with fellowship, we'll fellowship with saints, and then, we get sharpened together. Then we go forth into the world. World being our place of work, world being our place of business, and everywhere, our neighborhood. And then we shine that light there. We then go there as the salt of the earth to preserve the values of God. So we can't trivialize work. So there is that. And it's so when you look at all of these different elements, knowing that even that is an opportunity God has given to you to go and be there as an ambassador of Christ. So you can't, you need to recognize that even God has given that to you. Irrespective of what that job is, whether it's your ideal job or not, the fact that you're there, God has a purpose for it. And in your purpose, it's not your purpose, it's God's given purpose. So number one, once we know that God has given all of these things to you, they don't belong to you. Therefore, if they're His, you're just a steward.
That's right.
So the next thing takes me to the next point, which is you then have to go back to God and say, God, how would you like me to steward these things? Give me the capacity. And I'll say, use the resources available to you. Listen to messages that sort of sharpen you and teach you and encourage you. Listen to marriage programs like this, because you don't know it all, and you don't have to do life alone. You don't have to be lonely, and you don't have to be stuck, And also, if you have like-minded people, surround yourself with people who are like godly people, whether it's a monthly thing or weekly thing. Actively engage. Don't just be at home. Socialize. But when you socialize, I'm saying socialize with, do not forsake the gathering of saints. So we used to do like a weekly Bible study with a group of people not too far from us. And what we used to do is we'll go to each other's houses to do it once a week. And so we'll fellowship together. After we do the Bible study, then we'll eat together, we'll break bread together. And for us, it was a way to do all of that. But whilst you're in that gathering, it's a safe space. You are learning. Everything that's being discussed is still aligned. And whether you like it or not, an avenue for God to even speak to you. So use everything that's available to you. And I'll just say, don't just isolate yourself in your marriage. So you don't feel stuck. Knowing that, number one, God is in it. God has given you this ministry. You're just a caretaker. Go back to Him and ask Him for capacity, increased capacity. Go back to Him for wisdom and how to manage what you have. And I'll say, just give it back to Him. Rest in Him. Give Him your burden and let Him. Do you know what I mean? Let Him shoulder it, and you just go with the cruise.
Absolutely.
I think it sounds. I don't want to sound cliche or sound like we're doing, like you're trying to give perfect answers, but I think that's what I've used. That's how I've been able to do it. And I'm not saying it's always perfect. Sometimes you start feeling, I have to remind myself again that this is not mine. God, this is your burden.
Yeah, wow. I wish we had, loads and loads of time to keep this conversation, because it's so sweet.
It is really good.
Like I always say, it's sweetening my belly, to listen to both of you. So finally, just in 1 minute, Bumi, what does evolving together mean to you?
Wow. Evolving together. I think when I look at our marriage and our journey together, where we started from, where we are now, I feel that sense of, we started off on, I had my own lane, you had your own lane. And over the years, our lanes are converging. Converging, like, we are not fully there, but it's a continual process. It's a continual journey. And the more we are converging, the more we're looking like each other. You know, people often say things like, "Oh, husband and wife look similar," and things like that. And I think it's true, because I think the more we have aligned in our purpose and our sense of identity and things, and come together more and more, I feel like our paths are looking more similar, and we're having that sense of oneness. And evolution for me in that context means coming from you as an individual to a couple as one, not as two, and blending more and more with that person. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
It does.
we have a saying in Yoruba, you would know, translated, when the leaf has stayed for so long on the soap, it becomes soap.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly. And I say that, if I might add, you know, both in terms of the positive side and the negative
and
side.
the negative.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, all the good things, but you know, may I say, like, some of her bad stuff,
Some of her quirks.
No, she doesn't have any. Come on, she doesn't have any
I
at
don't know
all.
what he's talking about. I don't know what he's talking about.
I love that.
So, thank you so much, Titi and Bumi. Thank you so very much for gracing our virtual table today, and thank you for your openness, your wisdom, your vulnerability as well. You know, your story is real. You know, it's refreshing, and it is filled with grace. Thank you so much.
Now, so this has been.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're most welcome, and I hope that when you land in Canada and we call back again for transition stories from Canada, you would grace our virtual table
For part
again.
2.
For part 2, yes, of Titi and Bumi in transition. So now this has been yet another heartwarming and inspiring episode from you know, all the different transitions that they have been through, from bold prayers we've heard and also quiet sacrifices. Now, Titi and Bumi's story is one of grace in motion. And remember, transitions don't have to tear you apart. They can draw you closer when walked in partnership with God. And just to let you know, our listeners, we're still raising money for the Heart Song Live Legacy through our 8 for 8 campaign. And as we appeal, whether it's £8, £88 or £888, your giving helps Heart Song Live continue to bring hope, truth, and encouragement around the world. And you can give today at heartsonglive.co.uk/together-4FOR-8 number 8.
And to our listeners, we trust that this conversation has blessed you. Please share with other couples, and let's keep this conversation going on in our homes.
Absolutely. And as we round up today, we thank you for giving towards Heart Song Live. We thank you again, Titi and Bumi, for gracing our table and also sharing your story with our audience. And as always, we thank you, our listeners, for making room for us to be a part of your marital success story.
So we air here on Heart Song Live, Scotland's first Christian radio station on DAB Digital on Mondays, and we've got a replay on Wednesdays. Again, please join us in our fundraiser as we unite 848 to raise 8,000. Your giving helps us to stay connected, to share this truth and support lives through every broadcast, every story, every song, reaching the people who really need this hope, and you know, to lift their hearts. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's something we can all be part of. And after this program, if you're listening to this program on a Monday, we have Arise with Eloho. She airs on the hour at 8 p.m. Correction, 11 p.m. And if on Wednesdays,
too many 8s going
that's
on there.
right. And if you're listening to this on a Wednesday, we have What's on Your Plate with Annette, and she shares on the hour. Annette runs a lifestyle magazine that looks through, takes a deep dive into the lives of people doing amazing things in their communities. We ask that you keep supporting the radio station. Be just besides the fundraiser, just listening and talk to people about it. Spread the good news so we can help build faith and fellowship across the world. So we appreciate your feedback at MXperience@lidiosantos.com. That's feedback for this program. And remember, all our episodes are available on our YouTube channel, and the handle is @MarriageExperience. Also, don't forget to download the HSL app, the Heart Song Live app, for quick and convenient access. And to all our live programs, weekly updates, you're going to have access to those as well. It's where you can catch up on programs you may have missed.
Also, so once again, Titi and Bumi, thank you so much for coming to this program, and it's been a pleasure spending time with you, our listeners, this evening, and we look forward to, as we like to say, audio seeing you next time. Goodbye, and do have an awesome rest of your week. God bless you.
Join Ayakule and Bosade again next week on the Marriage Experience program as they bring God's truth to help you build your marriage God's way. Till then, remember, marriage is God's idea and it is a good thing.
The marriage experience.